Brandon Chapman here with the TheoTrade daily report video series. We're going to look at the market today. Lots of interesting things happening, particularly in some of the areas you may not think about, particularly mining. We'll look at a few of those. We're going to look at the markets as well, sectors that are leading and lagging in today's report. As you look at the S&P, we finished about 0.8% higher today. Now, as you compare that against the S&P 500 index sectors, that came in towards the top of the pack. But as you look towards the top of the list here, XLE was the best performing sector on the day. And frankly, in the past week, that was also the best performing sector, followed by communications today and technology. And some of the areas where you saw strength within energy are specifically, we'll look at some refining plays in there as well. Now, as we look across the various markets, as we look to TNX, the 10-year Treasury note yield, so you'll notice the yield was down today. So interesting dynamics. We're kind of at a point here where does the market go higher or does it go lower for bonds? Are we in more of an inflationary path trajectory, or are we more of a deflationary path or trajectory? Of course, with the upcoming inauguration, is this a buy the rumor and sell the news for the stock market, and in essence, buying the news in terms of the bond market, causing yields to fall, prices to increase? One interesting trade that happened today was on PCG. That's PG&E Corp. This is a utilities company, which has virtually done nothing. Normally, when you see rise in yields, normally utilities prices, stock prices decline. It hasn't done so. It's really been in a holding pattern now for a couple of months. And if you go to the trade tab here on thinkorswim, you scroll down to the bottom, you look at today's option time and sales. There was a really big trade made today that was skewed a little bit more bullish. In essence, buying an 18 June 2113 call, buying a 19 Feb 1250 call, and selling the out of the money 15s. It's a ratio in that there's only 20,000 bought and 30,000 sold, but it net carries a bullish delta with a short strike at $15, which is up in this area. So again, a bullish trade on a utility stock at a critical juncture for the 10-year Treasury note yield. And again, is this an indication that we're reaching a point where the stress being felt on the market, and particularly overvalued tech stocks, may start to feel the cracks in their foundations? And do we start to head lower in the market and ultimately lower in the 10-year Treasury yield and up in Treasury bond prices like IEF, or if you're going longer end of the curve, we're talking TLT. So maybe that trade today in PCG gives us maybe some indication of some traders expecting that yields are not going to soar from this point, maybe even see it come in, which would be bullish for utilities companies. You'll notice the utilities are not exactly at the bottom of the list, but they haven't been performing well today. But in the last week, it's actually one of the better performers in the top three over the course of the last week, even outperforming the S&P, which is basically flat. Now, as we transition, we start to look within energy. There's a couple of interesting dynamics happening there. And so we'll first off take a look at oil. Oil prices today, after initially kind of gapping slightly lower after the holiday, did rally throughout the day. A lot of the dynamics playing out in oil have been relatively bullish. If we look at forward/CL here, and I'm going to remove some of these other curves so that we're just seeing the current one, you'll notice something that's very interesting with oil. The prices are falling as we move out in time. Oil right now is in backwardation. This is an implied shortage, a net positive cost of carry, and it's bullish for oil and, of course, by extension, oil stocks. Now, bullish oil does not always necessarily mean bullish refining companies. However, is there the possibility of renewed demand for refined products? Well, if we look today, companies like Valero, for example, were up nicely, nearly 4%. Holly Frontier HFC was up about 4.6%. And another company in Marathon Petroleum Corporation, again, another company that's focused on refining here, also trading higher. So it makes it interesting to say, okay, are we starting to see, we've seen the movement in some energy, just names, are we seeing it starting to spill over in refining if the economy starts to open up post-inauguration and post-COVID season, if that's what we want to call it. So those are some interesting stocks that are moving today and some of the leaders. Another area of interest that was kind of intriguing was companies like tech, for example. You wouldn't normally think of a coal stock as being extremely bullish, particularly in a Biden administration. However, this is very interesting. We're breaking out today up 6.5% on the stock, breaking out of a small congestion phase. Now, tech not only produces coal, but also produces metallurgical coal. Companies like HCC similarly showing strength today, and rounding it out with some of the other coal stocks like Arch Coal was up minimally, ARLP was up a little bit more. So again, coal is continuing to show its perkiness, something I've really focused on since this kind of October, November timeframe with many of these stocks, and they're showing renewed interest today as the market's moving higher. Continuing kind of our mining thing, there's also CCJ. Now CCJ produces uranium, which is obviously goes towards nuclear power. Now the stock is down today. What was intriguing is there was a rather sizable trade in CCJ that was rolled down. You'll notice the activity for 19 March 21, the 13 and 15 strike. If we zero in on that expiration, you'll notice the significant open interest at 15. Likely the interest here is closing out that interest, and it's rolling down to 13. So what you're seeing is that some of the interest that's up here option-wise is rolling down to 13 to be more connected with the price. They're doing so at a cost, which is showing some expectation that maybe CCJ starts to firm up at support today. As we look at gold and silver, now, as we look at gold specifically, /GC, gold is also testing support down here after a sell-off. Maybe we're poised for a short-term move higher, along with silver as well. Now, this would indicate that the dollar maybe isn't going to diminish substantially, but maybe some of the policies here that are about to be proposed day one may lead to some near-term bullishness in gold and silver, obviously fueled by weakness in the dollar. Thus, you're seeing a lot of these commodity-oriented plays doing relatively well today. So again, silver perking up. A stock like AG today made a nice move. It's up 7%. Similarly, seeing some not quite as significant activities we saw with some of these other plays, but definitely some perkiness in the options market, bullishness for call options on AG. Another company that's in this kind of mining space is WWR. And I just finished posting on this on our blog as well. This company is interesting in that they saw a significant breakout today. Now, historically, this company has mined uranium, it's mined vanadium, it's mined lithium and graphite and other metals. And what happened today with today's breakout up 40% now at the close, this stock is basically, as of January 5th, announced that they sold off the uranium business. They're focusing on battery-grade graphite products, namely batteries, right? Well, today we saw on the trade tab, we come here to option time and sales. You'll notice there isn't necessarily any one trade that specifically stood out. But as we look at the activity itself, you'll notice that 44% of the activity or call volume occurred at the ask, with 9 times the average 5-day average volume. And so as we look at this, we can say, okay, where is the activity occurring? Because this is highly unusual to see this amount. This is not a stock that has significant open interest normally. As we look at the February expiration, a ton of activity centering here in particular on the 750 call option for this 19 Feb 21 expiration. Again, pointing to a bullish indication of movement in WWR. And as you look at the symmetrical triangle that's forming here, certainly the potential is to around $10, which is around that 61% retracement. And that's something it could hit fairly quickly. Obviously, we saw a very parabolic run, for example, in early October that fizzled, and now we're coming back down. Maybe the sale of the uranium business they announced on the 5th, plus the $50 million they have in Treasury capital, may put the stock in a better position to capitalize on a more battery focused cycle coming up here, maybe with the new administration's policies. Well, that's a wrap for our nightly video. It's January 19th. It's Brandon Chapman with you. Going to be with you on my inaugural session here doing the Theo Trade videos. Thank you.